Happy Wednesday, everybody, and welcome to God Speaks Today. You may notice that I'm doing things a little differently this week. I'm on my phone because my computer died, and rather than going live, I am recording. It's been an interesting and very challenging week, and I am determined not to give any place, any inch, not nothing to the enemy. So I'm going to go with what I got and make it work. And again, welcome to God Speaks Today. If you're watching for the first time, I'm Deborah Gaston. And today I felt Holy Spirit nudging me to share something that I shared maybe 2 or 3 years ago, just as a reminder to all of us not to give up on prayers that we've prayed years ago or may no longer pray anymore, or have possibly forgotten that we even prayed, because God hears, and for God to hear is for Him to respond. One of my Christmas traditions is to read through the accounts of Jesus' birth. I typically like to use the narrated Bible because it combines Matthew's account and Luke's account in one seamless story. But that particular year, I felt Holy Spirit directing me to read Luke's account in another version, more specifically the Passion Translation. We know the story, but let's set the scene. Zacharias has been chosen for the opportunity of a lifetime to go to Jerusalem and to serve in the temple there. He would tend to the table of showbread and light the lamps and burn the incense at the altar of incense in the holy place, right before the Holy of Holies where God's presence dwelt. One particular day, while he is going about his service, lighting the incense, which represents the prayers of the people. And I can just imagine the strong scent wafting through the veil that separated the holy place from the Holy of Holies, right into the very presence of God. So he's there, he's burning the incense, and all of a sudden Gabriel appears, and Zacharias is struck with fear. But Gabriel assures him with these words. He says, "Don't be afraid, Zacharias. God is showing grace to you, for I have come to tell you that your prayer for a child has been answered. Your wife Elizabeth will bear a son, and you are to name him John." Now, I can't tell you how many times I've read Luke 1, more times than I can probably count. But this time, as I was reading, I was arrested by one phrase in verse 13. Gabriel is speaking to Zacharias, and he's telling him not to be afraid because your prayer is heard. Holy Spirit seemed to just highlight that phrase, your prayer is heard. Then I heard Holy Spirit whisper, check out the footnote. And I looked at the footnote, and it indicated that these words could more accurately be translated as the prayer you no longer pray, or the prayer you don't even pray anymore. Think about it. He's telling him the prayer you no longer pray is heard. Not was heard, but is heard. I can imagine the number of years that Zacharias prayed for a child, for an heir, for a son. I can only imagine how he must have felt as years passed and he remained childless. Perhaps he and his wife Elizabeth got close as they got closer to that age where they weren't able to reproduce. Maybe Holy Spirit reminded them of Abraham and Sarah, and they thought, it is still possible. God could give us our Isaac. And he continued to pray with zeal and excitement. But with each passing year, that zeal began to wane, and the prayer turned into gradual desperation and perhaps even resignation. And he thought, maybe this wasn't a part of God's plan for Elizabeth and I. Maybe we're just too old. Maybe I sinned and disqualified myself. But at some point, I believe Zacharias just stopped praying that prayer. But God is not restrained by time, and what is past to us is present to him. He hears. He hears even the prayers we once prayed, but no longer pray. I don't know about you, but there are some prayers I stopped praying. I've done much like I think our friend Zach did. I moved from great expectation and excitement to hopeful to possibly to maybe not to just resignation. And I stopped praying and stopped thanking God for its manifestation. The things I packed away in boxes labeled not for this season, maybe I miss God, not in this lifetime, and I just tucked them away. But as I was reading this account, Holy Spirit began to stir something in me just because I stopped praying about certain things, because I didn't see them happening in a time frame that I thought was reasonable, didn't mean that God hadn't heard and that he would not answer. He would, in his timing, in his way, as he chose. You see, John had to be born at a specific time in God's plan. And before Zacharias and Elizabeth were even born, God had chosen them. So age was never a determining factor. Absolutely, God used it for his glory. And whatever God has called you to bring forth, it has a specific season, and you shall see the fulfillment of it in God's timing. It shall come forth. So I want to ask you, what prayers have you stopped praying or even forgotten that you prayed? Take heart. Know with a certainty, God hears, still hears those prayers. And I believe that we have entered into a season of God just wowing us with answers to the prayers we no longer pray. Stay in great expectation and anticipation. God hears. See you next time.